Hello everyone, it's Archie again. Welcome to another series of Pop Into My Pharmacy. Today I'm talking about the biggest organ in our body, which is the skin, and something we see a lot. Hence why I'm out here, because lots of patients come in to buy or to seek help or advice about skin problems, and also we get about loads of things from our dispensary. So eczema is the topic. Few facts: skin weighs about 3 kilograms in weight, which is quite heavy. That's a bag and a half of sugar. In terms of how wide it is, it's about 2 square meters, so I could spread that on my bed. So that's my bed cover. It takes about 4 to 6 weeks for your cells to actually replace itself. The function of the skin is to protect us. It's the first outer part of us to let us. It lets us know what's on the outside. So there's lots of sensing cells there. Because it's part of our outside, the body needs to know what's safe and what's not safe. So therefore, you have immune cells in our skin to detect bacteria and lots of foreign bodies. And in terms of symptoms, when it gets very, very bad, it gets itchy, it gets red, it gets sore. It can be very scaly as well. Most of all, because it's something that we show the outside world, it can really affect us psychologically. However, there's lots of things that you can do. So pop in and see us, or speak to a healthcare professional, whoever that might be. So the management of eczema, the mainstay, are the two main things that you can actually do. Number one is to use emollients. They're called emollients, but basically they're just moisturizers. The moisturizers are there. If I give you an example of how it's going to work, if let's say you pretend your skin is a bit like a brick wall, so you have these bricks and then they're held in place very, very strongly by a cement layer. So that cement layer is a mixture of both water and fats, and you need both of them. So the emollients do two things. They are basically supporting the cement layer, so they provide the fats and the oils, but just as importantly, or more importantly, they are providing moisture to keep the cement nice and strong, and also those bricks are being hydrated, so they are being plumped up. If they get too dehydrated, they'll kind of shrivel up and get very, very small, and if they get very, very small, they don't stick together and fall apart. So moisture is really, really important by keeping that cement layer intact to hold the bricks, but also for the bricks itself by keeping those bricks nice and big and solid, so they sort of butt up together nice and firmly to form that barrier, as I said. So if I start from this side going to that side, I'll show you some examples of these emollients or creams, and they'll go from being quite light to being quite heavy depending on your skin type. Okay, so here I've got an example of a colloidal oat cream, which would be Aveeno or Zero Veen. Okay, so these are very light, so I can actually use that on my face. And in fact, if I had eczema on my face, in terms of how much I'd use, I'd probably use one tube, which is about 100 mils per week. That's how much I'd use. Good thing about this that I like is that if I put it on my hands, I don't leave mess around, and that's one of my favorites. During the winter, I might use something a little bit different as my skin dries out. So I'll go up to the next stage, which will be, in this case, Epiderm Emollient cream. Okay. Other examples of the same thing, which get a little bit greasier, would be Diprobase cream or E45. Okay. Now these will contain liquid paraffin or white soft paraffin. So if you look on the label and something says liquid paraffin or white soft paraffin, you could tell how thick they are by where you see the ingredients. So if you see liquid paraffin first, you'd know that that's a little bit lighter than if you saw white soft paraffin first in the ingredients. Okay, so these contain white soft paraffin first, no, liquid paraffin first, sorry, before the white soft paraffin. Okay, and in terms of how much you use, if you've had moderate eczema, you probably use, you know, a 500 grab tub like that every week. So that's the quantity that you'd want to be using. Now, let's say my skin was very dry, or it was, say, on my feet, where my feet are really dry. I'd use something a little bit greasier, and I'd go to something like the Epiderm gel, just there, or the Zero Double Gel, or double base gel, or the Epimax Isomol gel. Okay, so these are quite greasy, but if I'm using that, in fact, I would use something like that. I put it on my feet and put my socks over, so it's not too bad. Or you might want to use these at night. So during the day, you might want to use the lighter ones on your skin, but going to sleep at night, you'd want to use a greasy one, because it's not so bad when you're sleeping, and you can just change your clothes, etc. Now, if your skin was very dry, then you'd get the last here, which would be something like Epiderm Ointment or Xeroderm Ointment, or can you see? There's one called Epiderm Ointment. Okay, now those are very heavy, but really good. And these ones there at the end, you'd spend some time putting that in, probably, I don't know, 10 minutes or so to put those in, but it's definitely worth it, because you want your skin at the end of the day, whatever you're using, to be nice and supple, so that it's able to act as a barrier. As I said, that's the mainstay. They're the emollients, and they're the creams that you can use. Sometimes, if, let's say, your skin was slightly infected, you might use a cream with an antibiotic in, or an antiseptic, and that will be something along the lines of Dermal 500 lotion. Okay, but that you'd only use if it was infected. We wouldn't want to use that all the time, that particular one, because at the end of the day, if you think about it, in my previous talks, if you've watched them, and I do recommend you watch them, I've talked about a natural bacteria or microbiome that we have. We have bacteria everywhere in our body. We have it on our skin, in our mouth, and in our gut. And they do a really fantastic job at protecting us. And it's part of our immune system. So whilst that is very good, if it is infected, that can disrupt our natural bacterial layer that we have on our skin. Okay, all right. If the eczema got very bad, I'd want to use an anti-inflammatory. If you remember at the beginning, I said in your skin you have immune functioning cells, because your body's skin needs to know what is foreign or not foreign, and what's safe or not safe. So there's these immune functioning cells which can cause inflammation, and sometimes they can go awry, so we want to dampen that inflammation down. So the mainstays would be these ones here. So okay, so I've got 4 here. Now in terms of steroids, there are 4 strengths. Whoops, daisy. I've got hydrocortisone, number 1, that is mild. Next one I've got is Umivate cream, that's number 2, that's moderately potent. Then I've got number 3, which is Betnovate cream, that's potent. Now the strongest one, number 4, is Dermovate. Okay. Obviously, in general, we'd want to be using the steroids, let's say the hydrocortisone number 1 on the face, at the bottom, and the Dermovate, sorry, we might use in other areas on our body. People might be worried about using some of the steroids, and sure, if, let's say, you used lots of, let's say I used the strongest one, which is number 4, the very potent one. Let's say I use more than a tube every week for the next, I don't know, 3-4 months on, let's say, my arm. Okay, Yes, it can cause the skin to get a little bit thin or thinner. I can be prone to having varicose veins. I'll have a bit more infection there, and also it might get absorbed and cause systemic side effects. A way of being and knowing how much to use therefore is something called a fingertip unit, because a doctor might say to you, or a pharmacist might say, use it sparingly, but what does that mean? A way of standardizing that is what's called a fingertip unit. Now, if I had a bit of steroid on my finger here, the tip of my finger to the first crease, that is called a fingertip unit, okay? One fingertip unit spreads over the palm of 2 hands, okay? So let's say I had a bit of eczema, the palm of 1 hand just there, I'd obviously use half a fingertip unit, okay? That is a measure of sparing, okay? So that's that. Now, as I said, some of the steroids you might want to use for your face. However, let's say your eczema was very, very bad. You'd be using, very, very greasy emollients, but you still wanted something to really calm it down. You'd use another immunomodulating preparation like tacrolimus. Because it's not a steroid-based product, and therefore not have any steroid-based side effects, that'd be okay to use on the face. And that would be something along the lines of tacrolimus. A brand name would be Protopic, and that the doctor might have asked you to try. The side effect of that one there would be sometimes stinging. It might cause a bit of stinging, etc. You probably want to use it every day, and after perhaps 3 weeks, if it did help, you could actually reduce that down to say twice a week. That's a fantastic product. Other things to remember is that, as you remember, if the emollients are getting very, very greasy, they'll contain white soft paraffin. Do be careful if you're around fires, because they can become a fire hazard. Be very, very careful, okay? Ways to apply the cream is to use it more often. Very, very important. It could be 2, 3, 4 times a day, whatever it might be. Use or apply the cream, okay, that one there, in the direction of your hair. So my hair will, let's say, be going down that way. Do it in the same sort of way. Don't do it in the opposite way. Otherwise, the pores will get clogged. If they get clogged, they get a bit red and sore. So do it in the direction of your hair. That's very, very important. Other tips would be, if you're having a shower or a bath, etc., you can use some of these as cleansers. Not only do they clean your skin, they will leave it nice and greasy and moist. These are very, very good. When you come out of the bath or the shower, pat dry, okay? Do not rub dry, because you don't want to start itching. And when you pat dry, okay, you're going to leave some moisture on the skin, so that when I put on some of the cream and there's still some moisture there, I'll be trapping in that that moisture. That's called the transepidermal water layer, which is very, very important to actually keep. Okay, so hopefully that's been useful. It ties in with another video I did on dyshydrotic eczema, which we see lots of, but this is generally eczema itself, which means the skin is irritated. Okay, thank you, bye.